Hello and welcome to my show Conversation with Priya. I'm your host Priya Mishra. Today is our guest Alan Stevens. Alan is a board member of several non-profit organizations and community group, including Soft Life Saving. He has picked up health and business and life experience. Taking that experience and knowledge, he helped people build a strong relationship in all areas of their life, whether that be in a business, an increasing conversation rate, sales revenue, and improved negotiation skills, or in a personal relationship through raising and teaching children. His psychometric angle is very interesting to listen for. So I'm so looking forward to talk to Alan Steven today. Help me to welcome in our show, Conversation with Priya, Alan Steven. I'm your host, Priya Mishra. Hello, Ellen, and thank you for joining in my show, Conversation with Priya. It is an honor and pleasure to have you. We've been trying for a couple of times, but it didn't work out earlier. But thank you for your time today.
Oh, you're welcome. I've been looking forward to having a chat with you. As you said, we keep missing each other, but finally we got our calendars to match.
Yeah, great. So I have been doing discussion for over more than a year, I think, and it really interests me, your profile, the way you actually help people and take their angles in all aspects, negotiation, sales, and personal life as well. I would like to ask you how this whole journey started in this area.
Oh, it started because, like most people, we get into things because we have a need for it. I was lousy at reading people.
Right.
Started out with, first of all, in my employment, I was working with telecom back when it became, well, originally the Postmaster General's department, then became telecom. And I was put in charge of men who were older than me. So my second in charge was 38 and I was 23. So having to understand and get to know them. And I've been pretty much a loner leading up to that, spent most of my time just with my pets more than anything else. So I didn't really have any people skills. And so that was a big learning curve for me. Then in my mid-30s, I joined a surf club and they taught me to be a patrol captain because I'd been running teams for some period of time. And they gave me everybody that nobody else wanted. So what they wanted was a dumping ground. But I turned that into the patrol of the year. So it was a case of really taking all the skills I've been able to learn while I was working with the men who were older than me and apply that to teams that were of all ages. And we became the patrol of the year.
Wow.
And so that then got me to become the club captain. And being the club captain, now I'm in charge of everything, same age as most of the others on the committee. But as they pointed out, they'd been there since young kids as nippers, and I'd only been there 5 minutes. And I went, well, sorry, guys, you put me in charge. And we took the club from 40 active members to about 120 active members in 3 years.
Wow.
And so that was getting the people who should have been on patrol who weren't patrolling. We got them on, plus all new members. And in my late 30s, my first wife left and I had 3 boys to raise on my own. So I was 4, 11 and 12. So now as a parent, as a father, as a single parent, I was out of my depth. So it was from being the youngest in employment to the least experienced in the surf club.
Right.
Being out of my depth in that, raising the boys. But where it really kicked in for me was my second marriage, was only a short one. And I just realised that my ability to read people was still nowhere near where it should have been. And that's what led me into doing, because I thought, right, I'm not going through another relationship like this. I need to be able to understand where people are really coming from.
Right.
Not so much to manipulate them, but to build stronger relationships with them.
Of course. Yeah. Very interesting. And, people always talk about necessity is the, invention journey. So it is the necessity for you, but it is so necessity for everyone else as well. It's not just your relationship. Many relationship is actually breaking because they don't understand each other. They can't read each other, or if they can, they don't pay attention to that. That's another ability people should have. And I remember you have been teaching people that knowing is not enough. You need to pay what you are reading as well, attention to that. So the detail level you bring in, it's interesting angle. So most of the speakers or coaches tell us about, because of their experiences, they become who they are now, for you, what are the experiences that help shapes the become a shout after profile and communication specialist of today?
Well, it was all of those experiences that sort of molded me along there. I've been a massage therapist. I've been in just about every industry you can think of since having left telecom after 23 years.
Right.
And I realised that in all those different industries, I was learning more about people along the way. I've been, after my second divorce, I actually became a lifeline counsellor.
Right.
And I did that training because my life was absolute rubbish. I had no direction. I was totally lost in everything else. So I did the training to be able to understand myself more.
Right.
Once I'd been through the training, they saw the potential and asked me to be a counsellor. And so I moved into that role with that. So it's always the events in our life that drive us through to where we're going to next. So it's always on necessity. It's all on experience. It's where we feel that we've got a need in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
We look at it, the number of life coaches out there, there's a large number of them, and it's a fast growing industry. And a lot of those coaches get into it because they've got to sort their lives out. That's why they get into it. And then they want to go and help other people as well.
Right. Yeah. Of course, like unless you, and plus also not only that, when you are going into that kind of life coaching, it's a self life coaching. You actually choose the pathway you choose.
That's it.
You can learn by experience, right?
Exactly.
So you choose that path. People say you can learn only by experience or by books, but your book knowledge should also be somewhere experienced, so that you can implement it. You can test the water in that sense.
That's it.
So yeah, very, very interesting. So yes, please.
I was going to say that when it comes to books are important. There's a lot of knowledge in those, but until you apply that knowledge, it's worthless. It's totally worthless. I've got hundreds of books down in my library downstairs.
Yes.
And in there's a wealth of information and knowledge. But while it's sitting there, it's worthless. It's when you put it into practice and you actually apply it.
Right.
It's knowledge plus your experience that then creates wisdom. Knowledge is not wisdom. It's just knowledge, and that's all it is.
Right. And as a specialist in international profile and communication, what is good communication to you? Like, many people are actually missing that communication, and there is a lot of things happening because of communication gap, whether it is a professional life or a personal life. So how do you what is a good communication to you?
A lot of people are just trying to get their message across to the other person. So the focus is inward. It's all about themselves.
Yeah.
I realised that, well, if we're listening to a radio station, we have to tune our receiver into the transmitter of the radio station, because we know what the transmitter is transmitting at.
Right.
And everybody who wants to listen to it, the common thing is the transmitter, so we have to then tune into it. Yeah. However, when we're communicating, it's the other way around. It's the transmitter's job to understand what frequency the receiver is on, because when we listen to a radio station, we want to listen to it.
Right.
When we're communicating with somebody, we want to get our message across. They don't necessarily want to hear us. So we have to understand how they take that information in, what form it needs to be in and everything else. And when we do that, we put our focus on them. And the more that we're doing that, we start to understand them at a deeper level. We know how to frame our words, how to put it together in a way in which they're going to understand it. And that's where true communication comes in. It's knowing ourselves, first of all, how I like to be spoken to, recognizing the other person and how they like to be spoken to, and then changing for that one person, changing the way that I speak to match the way that they want to speak.
Right.
I could have 100 people in the room, and because I can profile them on the spot, I can change my language with each one of them all the way through the conversation, and all of them will think that I'm really just talking to them.
Right. So, and that's very interesting. That brings me my question to profiling. When you profile people, you consider of course, their wordings, and do you consider all other aspects like body language? Because it's communication. Communication, it's not one way. Communication means it's always two way, right? So how do you observe that profiling, including their body language? And if 10 of people are sitting there, how do you observe that?
Well, I realised through all the different areas I've worked in after leaving telecom, I was a massage therapist, aromatherapist, my Reiki masters, I got my NLP masters. I've worked with sound therapies, colour therapies, you name it, I've pretty much worked with it. Because I realised that through life, the most important thing I'll ever learn is the next thing I learn after I think I know everything. So that was stage one. So once I understood that, it was then to learn and realise that one thing on its own is never going to be the solution. Now,
Right.
if you're building a house, you don't have a toolkit that just has a hammer in there.
Yeah.
You've got all the other tools that you need as well. And that's why I
Mhm.
look at all the different therapies and different systems out there. And so I realized that to communicate with somebody, I needed to understand where they're coming from, first of all.
Right.
Now, I know that looking at micro expressions, the little twitches on the face,
Mhm.
in all the CSI shows, the Lie to Me shows, all that sort of stuff, it's all sexy stuff. But it's about catching people out for lies.
Mhm.
I use that, but I use it as a truth seeker. And
Right.
to use it as a truth seeker, I need to get a baseline, first of all, of the person.
Mhm.
So I used to use psychometric profiling where we ask people questions like DISC and Myers-Briggs and all those things. But I realized that when you ask people questions, they will try and second guess what you're asking. And you
Mhm.
may not get an accurate answer. And if you don't have the skills to read that,
Mhm.
then you take what they've told you as being true, and therefore you're going down the wrong line.
Right. Right.
Because those things are affected by emotions, they're affected by your education level, gender, culture, all of those issues come in.
Mhm.
So I needed something that would give me a firm basis, regardless of who I was talking to benchline, to understand, get a foundation of their personalities. And the way I did that was I found that your facial features, and if you think about it, you lift weights, you're going to build muscles in your body. We also know that everything we feel inside, we express outwardly. So if you think in a certain way and concentrate like this, you'll pull expressions on your face while you're working. And if you do that over and over again, you build ridges and crevices on your face that give away your personality.
Right.
So now if I can see you, whether that be live or even from your photographs,
Right. Right.
and I can then know your personality, then I know where I fit on the world scale. I can see where you fit on the world scale. And I know how much information to give you or how much information not to give you, what structure to give it to you in.
Right.
So then I can communicate with you in the way that you want to be spoken to. Then I use the body language and the micro expressions to get the feedback of, have I read you right? Is there something going on emotionally with you?
Right.
And yeah, at the far end, are you telling me the truth when you're talking to me? So
That's
it's a number of different modalities I brought together. I've picked up the micro expressions from Paul Ekman, or the Paul Ekman group. Paul was the guy who did all the research on little twitches on the face, the micro expressions they call them. When something happens or is said around you, we unconsciously respond, and then our conscious mind steps in because it might be something we see out the corner of our eye. We go, oh, surprise. We realise then it's not a snake rolled up at our feet, it's a hose. And
right.
so our expression changes.
Right.
That little time when we react is a micro expression. So I use that as being able to read the person, but the facial features tell me the personality. And I couldn't understand why he and the other people who did the facial features
Yeah.
weren't doing what each other were doing and bringing it together.
Ah.
So I created rapid trait profiling by going, right, facial features tell me the personality. I then changed the language. This is where the NLP and things can come into it.
Mhm.
And then I got the feedback of the body language and expressions that now tell me whether I've read them right.
Right.
And that's where rapid trait profiling came from.
Yeah. I mean, I remember offline we did couple of time in couple of different events we met, and you did some profiling, and we questioned them as well, and they were very interestingly quite correct, and it was just a fun way we were doing at that time, not very seriously. So I can imagine how it will be effective when you will be doing actually in a serious mood for the reading sake. So
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example. I had a lady asked me to profile her son just recently, 17 years old, doesn't know what he wants to do. He's still at school, but he's doing some work experience and having some issues with some of the areas he's going into because they're not really seen as the traditional places for men to work in, but
Right.
are areas where men should be working in.
Yeah.
And the end result was I profiled him from his photographs.
Mhm.
There are 5 photographs that I asked her to take. I've had a couple of conversations with her and her son. They've agreed. They've said everything that I said in the audio report that I gave them was spot on.
Right.
He's understood why he does some of the things he does, which is improving his relationship, not only with his mother, but also his father.
Right.
And at the end of the day, once you know why you understand your personality, you know why you do the things that you do. And you know that your behaviors are not you. It doesn't describe who you are. It's just an aspect of you. And if you understand what triggers you, then you can change the environment around you so you don't get triggered.
Right.
And you can focus on where the strengths are that you have. Because every trait has an upside and every trait has a downside.
Yeah.
The upsides are our strength. The downside is where we get challenged.
Right.
So set up our environment so we don't get challenged. We have a happier life. And that's what's happened to their relationship.
Yeah, I mean, see, most of the things upset you because you don't want it to be surrounded by the unwanted thing,
That's it.
Otherwise, there is nothing wrong, in a normal routine. If you're going through, if things are smooth, unwanted things actually disturbs, and then your whole days goes different ways, and it becomes the practice slowly, and then you think that this is something wrong with me or something wrong with my environment, and then you start blaming, and a whole lot of things are that start. So it's very important to know that aspect, isn't it?
That's it. Because if you know which traits are causing that trigger, then because what actually happens is they get triggered, we respond to and get all emotional about it. But if we can recognize it even before we get emotional about it, that's one of our traits being triggered. We, instead of our traits controlling us, we then take, as they say, dominion over our traits.
Yes.
We set our environment up. So we go, oh, I can see that going to happen. I've got a couple of traits which are real doozies. They're great for finding errors in documents and things like that.
Yeah.
But on the emotional side, yes, I can see why I've been through so many relationships. It's one of my traits. And if I feel that, I'm starting to get that feeling again about the partner I'm with, I go, yeah, I know where that's coming from. I can deal with that.
Yeah.
And if it's not that, then I know it is the other person. But I look at myself first as being the trigger. I look at what one of my traits has been triggered here.
Right.
Is there a trait being triggered? Then deal with it. If there's not, then okay, I can then look at the other person as being the reason why I'm feeling that way. And I go, right, time to move away.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure this profiling aspect will be very helpful for the conflict management. It's a chapter in management, but they do not teach you how to do the profile before you react to that conflict and what action you took. So there is it's like a parenting. There is no rule book for that. But people said, oh, learn how to do the conflict management, but they don't know how. It's like people teaching focus, but nobody teaches you how to focus.
Yeah, well, see, it usually comes down to the fact that, conflict comes from the where we don't understand each other.
Yeah.
And so this is where the major issues come in. They say that, as parents, we don't have, our kids don't come with a manual. Our relationships don't come with a manual. And I go, well, they do. The other person's face is the manual. It's the roadmap of how they like to think and process. So if we know that, we know why we need to connect with them. So if you've got somebody who's is analytical and their partner just wants the overview, the end result is the analytical one's they need a lot of information before they make a decision. So they're going to give a lot of information to their partner. And the partner is going to switch off because it's far too much information.
Right.
And but you're not listening to me. The other person is going, but I'm hearing all of this. But what they're doing is they're filtering stuff out. If they go, oh, I know my partner just wants the big picture, the overview, then they can give them the overview and say, look, I'll give you the overview, but then you ask the questions that you want to ask. But if there's something after that you need to know, then it's all right if I tell you that then. Getting verbal agreements, turning where that analytical person sounds like they're nagging, you turn that into a conversation. Then you remove the conflict immediately.
Right.
Just by realizing, how do they like to take information in? How do I need to change from the way I need to take it in to match the way that they need to receive it? And when you do that, the other person straight away starts to feel a connection because you're communicating with them in the way that they need to be communicated to.
Right. And I think this technique can be very useful. I mean, of course, personal life, it will be helpful, but I'm just saying this can be a very useful in professional environment to build a healthy environment for people to work for,
That's
and
it.
it will, the
Very
healthy
much
environment will actually lead you to the more productivity, more happier people. The retainer model will work towards it. They are so much associated with it.
Yeah, well, everything's connected. You see, if you look at it straight from the position of when you're at school, before you pick your final subjects, and this is where one of the reasons I'm trying to get into schools as well as industries and businesses and families and all the rest, is that if the child knows what where their strengths are, they can then find the subjects that will fit those strengths, which will lead on to the career that they go into. So when they decide to go to university, they're not going to be like so many kids who do a university degree and then never use it,
Right.
or go into a job. I have to go, I've done my accountancy degree, but now I'm going to go in to become an accountant. I don't want to, but they do it because they've spent so much on the training, and now they've got a HECS debt they've got to pay off.
Right.
Go into that field and they're miserable and unhappy, which means then that they go home and they're unhappy, which means fights with their spouse and their kids are suffering. But if we help them find the career that matches their personalities, they go into an industry, do the study they enjoy.
Yeah.
They go into the industry they enjoy. If they're happy in their work, they're more productive, because we know when people are unhappy, their performance drops at least 30%. If they feel like they're being bullied at work because they're just not getting on with the managers and don't have an understanding there, they feel that their performance will drop 70%. And those that watch them being miserable in the work, their performance will drop 40%. And so you realise there's a lot of lost productivity. But if they're happy in their work, they're going to be working at their best level. The management then can go and work on the business because they've got people in the business who are working in the business.
Right.
They're happy at work. They're happier at home. They're happier with their kids. This is why you see relationships are the foundation of everything we do in life. Right. And this stuff fits into every area.
Yeah. And I've been told a lot of time when I was doing my management courses and leadership programs during corporate days, been told a lot of time that, you should know how to switch on and switch off from your personal life to the professional life. And I've been telling, and my argument was always like that. I'm not a split personality. I am who I am, right? So if something is bothering me at my home or at my office, it is going to actually reflect both places, Yeah.
See, I laugh every time I hear that, because those people have no idea of the human nature and everything. Because, those same people will tell you that when you're selling to somebody, go into the emotions, because we're 80% emotions or 82% emotions and only 18% logic.
Right.
Well, to be able to switch off is logic, but if we're mostly emotional, then stuff that's happening at home, you're going to take it to work, and vice versa.
Right.
And that's why this stuff cycles around. You're miserable at work, you're going to go home and be miserable at home. You're miserable at home, you're going to go back to work and be even more miserable there. And it spirals down the gurgler, so to speak, into depression and attempted suicides and other things.
Yeah.
We've got 6 men every day, I should say. 8 people a day commit suicide in Australia. 2 of them women and 6 of them male. Right. And so, once we start changing the way that we communicate with each other and realise that building relationships and understanding and proper communication is the solution to all of that. We can keep pouring money into all the different charities, but the charities are growing simply because we're not dealing with the root causes.
Right. And it's of course that you can't, many people are not good at hiding the emotions. You can read their faces straight away. Anybody can read. And some people are like very good at that. And I feel like they are more vulnerable because they are not being noticed what's going on in their head. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of suicide cases happen, and especially men's are actually growing rate is there. And it's very, very alarming and very disturbing. People think that they are very strong, but expect them actually. That's how society is built.
Well, men for a long time were told to toughen up and everything else. Keep your emotions to yourself. And when they say that men aren't emotional, my God, we are extremely emotional. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the number of suicides that are happening, because that's purely emotional.
Yeah.
I run the Campfire Project, and men and women both coming in there and telling their stories about what they've been through, and then getting into panel discussions talking about important issues. And the women are hearing men talk in a way they've never heard them talk before. We've always had the capability, but the expectations of society and the rules that we put on ourselves have held us back so much. Yeah. So, if we change that, then the real strength for anybody is in them showing their vulnerability. That takes strength. Hiding your problems doesn't take any strength at all.
Right. Right. And I'm glad that nowadays these kind of a platform is available, but in olden days it was not. And
Mm,
it was worse. I mean, we know the number now, but to be honest, we don't know the number even the past, what happened. Now we can talk about the men are more societal than the women and whatever stats we are getting right now, because we are more public, we are more aware, we have better platform, we have better analytical data, and the society is also open.
mm,
So, it's changing, but
mm.
it's still a long way to go,
That's
isn't
it.
it?
Well, see, the internet has been a brilliant thing for getting all that information. We know that in 2016, it was 48% of people were disengaged in their work. Another
Right.
18% were actively disengaged. In other words, whinging about it, letting everybody know. They then dragged everybody else down. So 2 years later, in 2018, it was 87% of people were disengaged in the workplace.
Yeah.
Don't want to be there. So if they don't want to be there, you can imagine why when they're at home, and then why we've got so many problems. And when COVID hit, and everybody's stuck inside the four walls and can't get out, that tensions and everything else escalated.
Right. And imagine, I mean, calculate the dollar value against it, like
Oh,
every minute productivity you are losing. Imagine the burden on the company, burden on the people, and burden on the society and overall economy effect.
yeah. Well, if I was able to grab a fraction of a percent of the money that was wasted through all of that, I could have retired many, many years ago and had an absolutely brilliant life. It's a fortune that's been wasted.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. And interesting ways to say. And I mean, I'm laughing, I shouldn't, but it's an interesting angle to see that how much money has been wasted, and people and corporates should pay attention to that and bring that in their corporate lifestyle. I mean, of course there are CSR activities and all is getting into it in the corporate practice, but profiling is one of the skill people should teach, and
Mm.
teach to the every individual, the employees who are joining, so that they can have a better environment and increase the productivity of everyone. Would
That's
you
it.
agree on that?
Exactly, because if you're able to just see, somebody can pass me by in the street, they can come around the corner from 10 feet away from me. As they go past my shoulder, I've picked up the traits that really stand out in their face, and I know their personality. So if you're doing psychometric profiling, you've got to ask people questions. You've got to ask questions for everybody you meet. You can't do that as a salesperson or sitting down at a party and pull out a thing and say, hey, can you fill this questionnaire out? Or sit and observe them for a period of time and try and read, well, you get their emotions in the moment, but you're never going to get their true personality. But from the facial features, you can. So I can be sitting in a cafe, and I was sitting there one day with a group of women who are in the same cafe with their children. And one little boy's banging away at the table. He's in the high chair, only a very young boy. And I could see his mother getting irate, with him, worrying about what everybody else thought about what was going on. And so I told her what I thought. I just leaned over and I said, oh, your son's got a music trait. And she started to apologize. I went, no, I'm not being facetious or funny. I said, this is what I do for a career. I read people, and your son, it's got in his face the trait that shows me he's got a gift for music. And if you stop and listen to the beating he's doing, you'll hear the rhythm in it. And she stopped and she listened. And I said, look, when you go home, try different music, and I guarantee he'll respond differently to the music. So you'll know what music to put on when you want to quieten him down, what music you need to put on when you want to lift his spirits up. When he gets older and he starts studying, you'll know what music he should not be playing to move his moods, but at the same time, what music he should be playing to help him study even better again, because there will be some music that will help him stay focused on the work that he's doing. And I
Wow.
said, and that could lead on to singing. It could lead on to he's also got pitch, I could see as well, so that not only a gift for music, but also for the pitch, which means he could be a musical instrument programmer, a conductor.
Wow.
A conductor in an orchestra, he'd be able to pick out which person was out of tune or out of timing. I said, there's a whole range of things. All of a sudden, she's looking at her son as though he's a prodigy, and her whole attitude towards him completely changed. Instead
Oh,
of her cowering at the table because of the noise he was making, she's sitting back with her shoulders back and her head raised, didn't care about what anybody else thought, and everybody else was listening to our conversation anyway. So no one was worried about him making any noise after that point. And
right.
this is the beautiful part of it. The more we understand the other person, the better
Yeah.
the relationships and the better our lives and their lives become.
Very, very interesting. I mean, you blow me away all the time when I do the conversation. you know, I know you are a public speaker, right? You have been doing a lot of public speaking, and it is very interesting to hear some of your story when you go to the public speaking and how you can read the audience and you actually derive your whole speech. Would you mind touching base and giving some tips to the speakers if they are going? Is that okay with you?
Yep, perfectly. See, one of the things is I know that, if I may use you as an example, I know that you love travel. You're adventurous. You like to try new things. And I can see that that's in the very pronounced cheekbones that you have. They're up high, they're out to the side, they're very solid there. I also know you've got a bit of a dry sense of humour. So the conversation we have is fairly laid back. I know you're not going to take things over personally,
Right.
unless I'm being direct, having a shot at you. Because one of the other, this is the longer philtrum area here. Those with a very long philtrum, that little groove section between the base of the nose and the top of the lip, that's what we call a philtrum. And the longer that is, the more the sense of humour that person has.
Right.
You have a natural turn of the corner of the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That natural turn comes from the fact that you smile a lot. If you smile a lot, then you're going to strengthen these muscles. They're going to get shorter and stronger. Magically, what they do is they actually pull the muscles down below the mouth upwards. So the corner of the mouth naturally turns up when you're sitting, not talking, just a neutral face. People who face down, they're more pessimistic. They frown a lot more. So they're more likely to be pessimistic about things. Yes, you'll get knocked down, but when something happens, but you'll get back up again fairly quickly. You'll be able to see the upside and move into it.
Yeah.
And the other thing, if you're meeting somebody for the first time, have a look at when you look straight at them, straight through the vertical of the pupil, imagine a vertical line.
Yeah.
The height of the iris, the coloured section of the eye, and would that fit beneath the eyebrow and above the eyelash itself? So have they got high set eyebrows?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to go through that middle position because there's different shapes.
Right.
On yours, it's wide out to the side, but narrow on the inside. So I'm looking straight up.
Right.
The people who have a large gap, they need space. Don't walk up and stand real close to them, because if you do, they're going to step back.
Right.
And you step back in again because you don't notice it. You've invaded their space. They're not going to hear a thing you're saying. They're just going to be feeling uncomfortable.
Right. Okay.
But what I'll do is, with someone like that, I'll walk up, put my hand out, greet them, and then if we're too close, I'll just turn my body slightly so they don't need to move away because we've got this bigger gap out here.
Yeah.
I immediately shake hands, move back here, and make them comfortable.
Right.
So I know they've got a really low set, boom, they're going to be here.
Interesting.
And so I can know exactly how that person is. If I then set that up so they've given the right space, as we're talking, they come closer, or the next time they meet me, they stand closer to me. I know they trust me, because it's not that they're not friendly, they're more discerning. They want to check out who's safe to be around and who's not safe to be around.
Right.
And the moment they're standing closer to somebody, you know that they know them and that they trust them.
Right.
There's just a couple of little traits, but there's a whole lot I could tell you about your face.
Yeah, we will chat offline because I want to know about me. And we have been talking anyway. I mean, there are many topics to talk between us. And interesting fact you always bring every time we talk, I am always blown away in my head. And I'm like thinking, how can I acquire that knowledge, And it would be interesting to see more and more corporates are actually acquiring your knowledge, implementing to their employee set so that, whole things will be changed.
One of the things is my target is to create and train my competition. We need more people doing it, but they have to be doing it right. As we've seen with life coaches, they're everywhere. There's a lot of people doing it, but a lot of people who haven't worked through their own stuff yet.
Right.
So I want to make sure that more people are using this, but they've got to be doing it right. Otherwise, it loses its value.
Yeah.
So anybody who wants to learn, I'm happy to have a talk to them about how they can go ahead and train. But I do have a free gift for all your listeners. I've got a free course which they can jump on and do. It will teach them how this stuff works. It'll give them a couple of traits to go out and test for themselves.
Yeah.
And it also talks about the other courses that I do as well, so they can see where they can take it to from there if they enjoy that.
Yeah, I remember I got that free gift and it is really valuable. So everybody should definitely do that one. And I'm pretty sure you guys will go ahead in further courses. Thank you so much for joining in. All your details will be given in the below. I know you are very actively participating in different social media, but especially LinkedIn. I have noticed that you are always respond whenever I reach out to you through that. So is it okay if I will provide your LinkedIn to the description and people can reach out to you?
Yep, that would be absolutely brilliant. As I said, I want to help this expand and, as I said, create and train my competition. So the more people that know about it, the better.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing this as a competition. I'm seeing is that the necessity and requirement of a corporates,
Yeah. Well, if I train that competition, they're not my competition, they're my strategic alliance. And once, as somebody said to me, what happens when I finish my training with you? I go, well, I hope you like me. And they go, why? I said, because you're stuck with me. Because as I learn new things, if you're really focused on this and you're getting out and helping other people, you're going to get my support to make sure that you always are up to date with the most recent information.
Right.
So that you can be more effective yourself, because otherwise I'm not doing my job right.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. Thank you so much for your time today. Interesting conversation. There's so much to know. I can keep going hours here, but I know you have a limited time and we also. So thank you so much for your time. We value it. And I'm sure audience will like it. If you haven't liked, subscribed and commented yet, please start doing it, because we are bringing new story every time. And Alan is bringing a lot of his story in his space. So please check out. He has done so many interviews and so much tips he has given in different routes. Please follow him on the different social media. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done it. To know more about us, visit www.corporality.global. And also you can find more about Priya Mishra is on priya.sydney.